Carrie Weason. Here. Michael Brennan.
Here.
Audrey Rock. Here. Carl Ayers.
Here.
Noel.
Here.
And welcome to Michael Brennan, our new board member, or our committee member. Do you want to tell us a little bit?
Sure. Been a Berthoud resident since 21. Prior to that was career Army, and now I work for the U.S. Forest Service, and I will save any comments on how that's been for the last several weeks, because
You're still there.
I'm still there. Yes, and apparently we're bringing everybody back, but I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that
So,
today.
Arapahoe Roosevelt.
yeah,
That today.
cool. Yep. So
Welcome.
appreciate it.
All right. Next, we have approval of the minutes for February 5th. Everybody get a chance to look at them? Anybody have any comments, changes? Nope. Get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Second? Second. Oh, Carrie second. Right. And then on to public comment for non-discussion items? Nope, okay. All right. And on to discussion items?
Okay. We're
Mike,
moving
you're
through. We're gonna start with the Jaskowski property. And I'm bringing this back because we last talked about it, I think in October. And the board's comments were, we like disc golf on the east, we wanna keep the working farm on the kind of the west side of the property, the rest of the property. And that's kind of what this shows. Talking with the dog club, they didn't really need anything added to the property, so it doesn't show anything added specifically. I could probably add a note up here for dog training. I've been saying that's one of the uses on the property when I talk with Colorado Open Land, so continuing that talk as well. I have a meeting with Colorado Open Lands next week to discuss this design still. And then following their approval of what we see here, we'll take it to the board to kind of get some comments on some of these things as well. So
The iteration, the design we're looking at right here, that did incorporate Colorado Open Lands feedback, correct?
they approved the one before this,
The one
in a
before
way.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I gave them this one since there was little
Yeah.
changes, there was more farm, more description of how we'd like the ponds to be used for possible training, for possible irrigation.
Right.
None of those things are new. Nothing's new we've thrown at them, but
Right. That's what I'm getting at. I think overall there's not going to be any. I think they're going to react favorably.
yeah,
Yeah.
they wanted some more things cleared up. So
Yeah.
we'll meet next week, and following that, we'll take it to the board. Main questions for the board are ideas for the buildings. It is just a conceptual design. We're not pushing for the property to be developed or anything. So, we have a house, and this is, Michael's definitely very new to this property. This is located on, we call that 14 up there? 14?
Yeah, I saw that it's just west of the northern entrance for TPC.
Yep.
So,
Found it, perfect. So it's an 80-acre property. The town took it over, I think in the 2010s or something like that. I'm trying to figure out that exact date. It's kind of hard to pin down when the conservation easement was made, when the town took it over. I think it was around 2011 or 12 actually, when it was handed to us, is what I think. The property has a pretty strict conservation easement on it that really just says agricultural use, kind of some passive recreation, wildlife viewing, retriever dog training. I feel like I'm missing if there's a fourth one or not, but it's basically like that. So we're not planning any big developments or anything out here. You can only build within the current building envelope, which is about this big around there. So if anything new, you can take the structures down, you can rebuild new stuff, but there's a handful of structures on the property that.
Have you guys looked at the condition, because I just finally took a drive and parked in that entryway right at the gate and just took it in for a second.
Yep.
Maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and the buildings look like they're in good shape. Is that, I mean, it looks like
I would
there's
say
some
so.
value there, yeah,
Yeah, the house is in great shape. It's outdated. It's
Sure.
It's been updated in a while.
The barn's fairly new though, right? Is that,
I don't know how new the barn is, but it's in great shape too.
Yeah.
The building that's in the worst shape is the condo apartment,
Mhm.
and that's because someone lived in it and didn't take care of it very well when it was handed over to us, basically. So, I mean, it smells like a dog been living there, is what it smells like. So, but the garage, this little garage, is in great shape too. And that's been a tough part for us, thinking like, okay, we're gonna tear these buildings down, repurpose them into somehow, you can make them into offices possibly. We just don't love the location on that side of town, and looking how Berthoud's even gonna grow in the future, like Berthoud's, like growing that way is not, not likely to happen. Now growing like east and some south and stuff is likely to happen. But it's just putting staff all the way on the very edge corner of town where they're
10-minute drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
everywhere. That's a little tough. But we do use it for some storage and in the, like currently, all the Christmas supplies and stuff are out there.
Keith?
Yep.
You had a slide in October when we reviewed the different scenarios for the parking lots.
Mhm.
Do you have that available?
I
I
have-
thought that was kind of a helpful review of the buildings.
Yep.
But I
I
can't
think
remember what the feedback was. I think we all decided on the parking plan scheme. I can't remember.
I think it was 3 with the round, like. the
Yes,
round.
yeah, that's right. That's what I remember. But it sounds like there's nothing, I mean, it's kind of depends on the town now to decide if they want to use any of the buildings.
right. And that's, I think it's a tough part for us to figure out. It was be open to the public, and then we just have a house out there, and keeping that secure. But I mean, there's tons of open spaces in Larimer County and stuff like that. They all have maybe a little house or something on the property, so it's not totally different, but it could happen.
And you can't rent it, right?
Can't rent it, right?
Cause some of them, like, I know some do, like, that have
Mhm.
houses on open land property or whatever, like, people live in them as tenants, but
I think they're prohibited from having income.
So with this scheme that we have, that pretty much gonna present this to the board. Now, the consultants always throw a few extra things in there. It's always, I think it's their idea to put more in, because they can always be taken out in these conceptual ideas. And so just a refresher, the disc golf course, there'd be some topography added to the east side field, making some small hills and such to work around, extra trees planted. Trails would move throughout the property. We'd continue farming this west side, which I believe is 25 acres. And then the possible use of dog training. So that's kind of the idea. I just wanted to confirm with you all, that was all good with you, what you're seeing, unless you had any extra comments to share when I share this.
I have just one comment about, you said you're going to edit the little description, the summary that's up at the top right.
Yeah,
Why are art features left in there? Are there still potential art features being considered?
I think only as in a conceptual manner.
Okay.
If it's, I think putting little,
Because they don't show it in any of their
No.
proposed photos.
no. Potential art features, right. So, yeah, that's,
And I think, as you mentioned, it would be an enhancement to put up in this description, that it's a potential retriever dog training area. And maybe do you guys have a dynamic photo or something of a dog jumping into the water? I don't know. I mean, I think since we've talked about it so much and our committee doesn't seem to have any issues with it, I don't know about the trustees, what your discussions have been, but it would seem like if we can move towards that being definitely on our understanding
Mhm.
of what's happening, so it doesn't get lost moving forward.
Okay, I can do that. I think it's good.
If I remember correctly, the last time we talked about this with our port committee, the building piece, I think we kind of deferred to you and
Mhm.
staff, Keith. I don't know if you guys remember that, but,
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, usually I want to just look at it because I'm like, I don't remember the buildings of driving past it before and.
so I don't see any change to that unless you all disagree, but. And maybe the board has some thoughts and opinions too.
Got it.
Yeah, only
Yeah.
thought I would have was try to, if there is good value there in like the barn, for instance, might as well take advantage of that.
Mhm.
But I agree. It's up to the staff to really determine that. I haven't been inside, not a certified inspector, so.
And like if there's, I know we've talked about security issues, if there are security issues with having the buildings, like the one that's really tall, like if it's blocking views and stuff,
Mhm.
just considering that too. If there's a reason to take it down because it's,
Right.
not as secure.
That's definitely been one of our biggest thoughts is can't see back there.
Beautiful property though. I mean, the
Mhm.
trails alone are gonna be so well used. I can imagine there for sure. Great view. Especially that eastern side of it is, yeah, it's elevated looking over the wetlands and ponds and at Longs and the national park and Indian Peaks. And it's great.
I think I asked this before about the barn. There's no way to like make that into any kind of like indoor recreation space of any sort, like basketball courts.
Hmm.
Like I can tell you that like in my experience, I'm on the board for 50/30 Sports, which runs a competitive basketball program. And that's one of the hardest things to find is space. And for a couple of reasons, but one of them being that the rec center reserves all of the elementary schools around here and pays the Thompson School District for those spaces to practice. So my thinking is if you could have a practice space in there, not something that generates income, and not like a place where you hold tournaments or anything like that, but just practice space for something like basketball. That could be a money saver because they're paying the Thompson School District for every hour that they're renting the 4 schools in town. They're renting those gyms every basketball season. So just a thought, if that's something that they could look at, it might be a great use for an indoor space like that, because I know it's a need and it probably will get more and more as the town grows.
I don't know, the pickleballers are gonna hear about this. We're gonna have an indoor pickleball court.
I will ask Colorado Avalanche next week on that. Specifically ask that one.
And remind me, are all the black lines, those are all like walking trails?
Mhm.
What's the difference in the colors?
I would guess the width.
The surface.
Everything would probably be crusher fine out here. And then I would imagine these would be probably 10 feet in width, and these look a little smaller, 6 to 8 feet in width.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Not sure if this is the right forum for it, just a facilities plan as far as restrooms. If there's anything
Yeah.
that works for that. I don't know if you can repurpose those buildings or if especially on the outer stretches, if you're gonna have to rely on like a portage on contract or something.
A previous port comment, I think we thought about maybe just this condo building, since it's technically an apartment.
Mhm.
You have plumbing there. That's where a restroom building could be added. Pretty easy. Something like that, so yeah. That would be ideal to have actual plumbing and stuff like that.
Can we open for public comment?
Yep.
We can open for public comment if anybody would like to.
The last time that we were here, we had presented a proposal for a pilot program to actually start utilizing the property for dog training. And as I understand it, when we left, that you were going to vote on it, whether or not that you should then take it to the trustees. And because I guess the trustees would be the ones that are making that decision ultimately, but they thought maybe that it would be beneficial if the port board or committee had recommended that, yes, we would like you to take a look at this proposal. And so that's what we were hoping would transpire tonight. And if you have any other questions on any of the things that were in the proposal, I have copies of it again if you didn't bring it with you. Sure.
And sorry, remind me your name.
My name's Joe, and then Dave and Wes.
So Keith, you did not send this out to our group?
Oh, I thought you guys got it handed to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we got it handed to us, it just was, I mean, I have a copy, it just wasn't in like the official
Thank you.
Oh, okay,
documents or the agenda that we were gonna review it.
okay.
It does say in the minutes, I looked that over and wondered about that, because in the minutes that you recorded, it said that we
Yeah, I got
were
Thank you.
to
Sure.
provide a recommendation to the town board prior to the
Thanks.
board's March meeting.
You're welcome. Do you want one?
That's accurate.
I think so, that we all wanted some time to look it over and then we could talk about it at this meeting to make a recommendation for the board meeting. Keith, do we have any kind of time frame? Like, do you have a pie in the sky time frame? Like, do you know any 5 years, anything like that before we have this?
Thinking the next 2 years, 3 years would be like an arboretum outdoor pool combo thing going on. And then whether this fits in here within those 3 or 5 years, right? I don't think it's gonna be next 2 years at all, unless something changed. But I think the highest priorities are the outdoor pool, the arboretum. We're about to have the trail kind of built around to the rookery. So having a trail dead end at a possible open space, that's kind of, might be a higher priority than somewhere on the outskirts of town a little bit, as a higher trail connection priority. So trail wise, I think you have those two to think about, the rookery one and then this one, since this is more trails as well. So yeah, we don't have any time frame on this one. This has been a good exercise to work through with Colorado Open Lands and maybe get some, these are okay uses and uses that the town feels comfortable with as well. When it comes to the dog training, you guys, I know this is kind of something you guys have never been involved with, allowing any additional use. So it's up to you all. I know you guys have said, you know, we're okay to keep like looking into it for the property. When it comes to providing exclusive access and stuff like that, if that's something you feel more comfortable like passing along, moving along, you can say something like that. If you're kind of neutral with it, it's not something we feel comfortable providing access to a single club. If anything, you can think about it along a lot of lines. So
I think it's totally worth passing it along and letting the powers that be actually look into it and see if it's feasible. I mean, obviously that's what the woman who, sold this property to the town,
That was her wishes.
wanted that to happen there, and it's been many years, and it will continue to be many years before that's
have an
fully
instant
a
solution.
possibility.
A solution that has no additional fees, cost structure, expense to the town. Property is set up and designed specifically for dog training. Ms. Gaskowski was a legacy member of our club, the Platte Valley Hunting Retriever Club. It requires no improvement, no staffing, no additional expenditure other than allowing the club access. Keith was saying that it's generally not town policy to allow access to the property or to a project before its completion. We would simply ask for a variance on that. We have the ability to fulfill the requirements of the easement immediately. One of the key requirements was dog training. We're a conservation-minded, grassroots, local club that deals with this type of thing. Our access to our 3 properties right now are, on a limited basis, based on membership only. We have the ability to identify ourselves properly, and it seems a shame to waste the opportunity for an area so perfectly suited for its primary function, and we can provide the town a solution immediately without expense. As this project matures, we're still your partner. We modify our usages based on what your needs and requirements are. All we're needing is access to the property on a basis designed for or decided by the township. It's nothing more than a limited access. I think the open lands, Colorado Open Lands would have no issue with what we're, do they have any issue with the property as it sits now? Does the Colorado Open Space, Open Lands have any issues with the property as it sits now?
No, not right now.
So when she granted to the property to town Berthoud and that, her wishes to do everything, didn't that all go through, planning, zoning, and everything else, and was approved at that point? Open space, wetlands and all that.
I think, if I had to guess, it just went to the town board. 10 or 15 years ago. I think more processes occurred in the last 8 to 10 years, that it might have went a different route for them. But usually if it's a land purchase, those would go through the town board and town administrator.
Yeah, so I guess from my viewpoint, if you guys want to make an official recommendation, if you could vote on that as being an official recommendation that you would like the board to pursue a variance, that's something that I can report in the meeting whenever it comes in front of the board.
I'd be happy to support the variance and you guys mentioned it in the letter here, to further express our gratitude. We welcome suggestions from the town of Berthoud on how we can give back to the community. As far as some stewardship of the property goes, I think that's something that with Colorado Open Lands too, that would help satisfy them.
Absolutely.
So I don't know necessarily what I mean, if that's a weeding event or some type of cleanup or whatever, any management activity, because you guys could probably generate, I don't know, 20 or so
Easily.
individuals, right? That
We
could
had kind of
knock
discussed
out
that a little bit with Keith, because we did actually go out and walk the property at one point and
Yeah.
had discussed that and said, we'd be happy to maintain the property.
Yeah.
But he basically said, well, we can't let you do that. We've got people to do that. And
Yeah, and I'm not saying
Well,
in
as
maintenance,
far
but
as-
just a stewardship
well,
effort,
as far as
even in,
if there was a leader that said, hey, we want you to clean up this, or,
yeah.
this brush pile or whatever, we would have the manpower and be
Yeah.
able to do it. And we do that with the 3 properties that we're on now.
Right.
There's we do some mowing and things like that for the property owners and.
That's where I'm at. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my opinion would be, I mean, it's, as long as I've been on the committee, we've talked about this property. And for those years, nothing's really been, it's not been used for anything. So it's really been sitting there doing nothing. And I think allowing folks to be out there who are obviously respectful of the land, I mean, that might be helpful, not only to them, but to the town to have, you know, they're gonna have eyes out there and be on that property if there's any issues or anything going on out there. So I would be in favor of it.
I agree exactly. I think it's hard to justify it just having no use at all when there's absolutely no improvements needed. But if we look at it like as a pilot or a trial, it's a learning opportunity for the town. You could have a point of contact, and it could be, we could be receiving input about what y'all see out there, and it could tandem with the decision process about finalizing the project. I can't see any items of justification except for a precedent, but you know, there is a dog training legacy there that should have some weight.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the legacy, that's what these ponds were built for, and they're not being used for that, and that's what she wanted, and I totally agree. I think it seems like a good thing to bring up.
Okay, I might be the only one in the minority here, but so we talked last time about my biggest issue is the precedent piece. That's kind of why I'm hesitating a little bit. I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. Like, it's been sitting idle for many years. It might be 5 more years plus, or who knows how long. But I think I just have concerns about setting a precedent and what that would look like for future projects as well. Also, if you guys are out there, I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions about, oh, is this space open now? Can we all go use it? And then we're going to have to do a lot of explaining, saying, no, we're like 5-10 years out, but these guys get to use it. I just feel like I have too many unknowns about how it's going to look. So I will probably be voting no, but if you guys all want to vote yes, that's fine. Majority rules. So,
Can I give you a rebuttal to that?
sure.
It is in the wishes of the person that donated the land to be able to use that for that. So if somebody were to ask, why are these people on this property? You could say that we're trying to develop it, we've been trying to develop it, but this is one of the wishes from the landowner. And so the land has sat idle for so long that we would like to, we opened it up for this group so that we can, like you were saying, get an education on what we do. We would be happy also for the trustees or for the board committee to set up a demo. We could do it there, or we could do it at another property and just do a demonstration on what we do and how we operate and things like that. It is one thing that when we left here last time that I thought that I wished I would have mentioned is it's not like a dog park when we're training. There is no more than 3 dogs outside their kennel at a time, and the 2 that are not working are basically at heel by their handler, waiting to go to their turn, which is a discipline for them to have that ability to be calm and to be under control during another dog working. So it is not like a playground. It is a training event, and that's just one thing that when I first started, I've only been in this group for 3 years. And when I first started, I thought, wow, nobody lets their dog play with another dog, because that's not why they're there. When we go out to train, we're there to train. We're not there to just let the dogs run around and play. So it is structured.
Would the sidewalks or like the trails between all of the lakes affect how you guys like train the dogs at all? Like, because I see like some of them are in like circles around them, so like, would that affect how you train them if you were just gonna go like straight through them?
Not at all. In fact, that's considered a factor, is what we call it. Meaning, if we were trying to get the dog to cross that, sometimes the dog will want to go down the easiest path. They might want to change, and we actually expose them to that because we want them to go in a straight line to where we're trying to get them to go. So it actually is it's a tool that we use for crossing. A lot of times it might be like a dirt road or a 2-track where vehicles have driven by that we're trying to get them not to go right down the middle of it, because they'll want to. Instead of going through the bushes, they'll want to stay on the path just like we do. So yeah, it's a tool that we use actually.
If there's some opportunity there to learn about it, could the town approve it on a trial basis and revisit it in a year or something? Reconvene and see how a year has gone, if there's any downsides?
I'm not sure what we can improve or not yet.
But I mean,
So,
it's, if we're voting in support of that activity there before the property is open,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be that it's a permanent access or permanent permit, but maybe it's a year trial basis.
Mhm.
So it's not really much of a
So then-
risk to the town to just see what happens over the course of a year and get input from
I've-
the dog.
And I'll just bring up, I've probably had 4 different clubs reach out to try to use the property. So just bringing up, is it exclusive to this group? Can any group use the property? What's it
See,
take to be a group?
That's like I just
Does
have
it
a lot of
take
questions
One
still
person
about.
wanting to come out with the dog to use
Yeah.
the property?
Have any of the
Yeah.
other groups come and talk to the board committee? Have we had more than just this group come?
This group has definitely come the most. I can't remember when we were doing the Zoom calls, that the one woman came in on one of the Zoom calls one time to discuss it. So there's more than one group that's asked. Maybe they've stopped asking because they've got the same answer for a lot of years, but, so I mean, I knew doing this process, we're gonna talk about dog training a lot. So those can all be details we flush down later, but those are just more for you all to think about. When you're like just kind of recommending to the board, like, hey, we don't see an issue with it.
I personally feel like there's too many details to be fleshed out before, like, I'd like to see like what this could look like in more detail, like a proposal, to your point, like, is this a trial thing? Are multiple clubs allowed to use it? Like, I need to see a little more detail before I just like say, yeah, like, at this point, I'd rather like respect the precedent until I see more details and more information.
I guess I feel like that's not our job, like, it makes sense to me to recommend that the board and ultimately really town staff looks at it and sees if it's feasible, because like, to me, that's the next step anyway, is working out the.
But
I'm just
that's
recommending
different.
that they.
That's different than what I think you guys were talking about. Like, I think what I heard is you guys were saying, we recommend like moving forward with this. Or bringing that recommendation to the board to vote
I
on.
recommend moving forward with it, and then the town figuring out the details.
You recommend
If it
handing it off to
works.
the board to look into, or?
Yeah.
And then ultimately town staff to figure out the logistics.
Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, ultimately, we don't have the authority to make it happen or not. But I do think the people that do have the authority should look into it and see if it's feasible, I guess is my.
And Keith, that's not what you were saying, was it? You were saying you wanted,
I could do either thing, whatever you guys recommend, right? So you could either recommend that, yes, the board, that it would be your official recommendation to move forward with a pilot program or move forward with open access, or you could say you would like the board to consider options that you would agree that the land laying fallow is unacceptable, and whatever the decisions need to be made, that you would be okay with those decisions being made, right? So either way, whatever you guys want me to recommend, I will recommend, because I'm not trying to tell you, hey, I think you should recommend this or that in this instance, right? whatever recommendation you give, that's the recommendation that I would focus on in my reports.
Cause that's two different things, that's like two very
Yes.
different things, so I just wanna be
And-
clear what we're recommending.
Yeah,
because-
since that has been clarified, whenever I give my report, whenever this does come in front of the board, I can make sure to say, you know, there was some consideration between the two kinds of recommendations the board was giving, and I could say basically that your recommendation is a general recommendation that the land needs to be used. How can we use that land? You weren't necessarily specifying that it should be. Your recommendation wasn't that it should be used in this way or it should be used in this way. It's your recommendation is that the land should be used
For the purpose of.
for dog training. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not sure it's the timing is correct to bring in the other proposals, because we haven't received anything in detail from the other clubs. As somebody pointed out, I mean, you don't have to go any further than pointing to the wishes of the person who donated the land. I mean, I can't imagine there's any other club that said the owner had specifically wanted this activity to continue. So, you know, I think it's pretty hard to compete or to counter propose a club that has a more meaningful legacy coming from the previous owner. That's my opinion, but I like the idea of the two options, so maybe, and I think you stated them pretty well, Carl.
Yeah, and
Maybe,
even more recommend, I mean, Port could recommend, hey, if we wanna sell the property to the club, that's on the table too. And those are other everything we thought about here. If it's, you know,
Right, yeah, because the conservation easement, it goes with the property. It's not just that the town owns it. It's if you guys are tired of having this in front of you, maybe we just sell the property. That's also a recommendation that you can make.
Let's work with you on that, absolutely.
Piece of property history is it was offered to the town of Loveland first. and
okay.
they did
Loveland, Parks and Wildlife,
So.
Yeah, and-
county.
it was
Yeah,
way-
and Berthoud
way
was,
down the list.
right, and Berthoud was, I assume, because this was before my time, the reason that it was so hard to get rid of was because of the conservation
Yeah,
easement,
yeah.
right? It wasn't, because, I mean, especially like Loveland, this is way south of the main part of Loveland. They were gonna have the same issues that Berthoud had, it was just, you know, closer to us, and this is parks and open land for Berthoud, so the town board at the time was basically like, yeah, okay, we'll take this acquisition. We don't have to keep it, because the conservation easement goes with the property, so if we sell it, it's not gonna be developed, because it's in perpetuity ag and open space.
well, I think we've visited this properties, I mean, in our meetings, we've reviewed this so many times, I feel like there has been a valid thought put into both the Frisbee golf activity and the continuing, you know, a dog retriever trial. And I think there's value in, you know, our process to getting down to those two activities being compatible with the land. So it's not like starting from zero. I mean, the Frisbee golf people would probably be disappointed if we sold it. But it could, I think it could enhance Berthoud's images. You know, we have, you know, these, you know, fun activity clubs going on, whether people participate or not. You know, to recognize that, you know, retriever dog training is something that happens in our region and it's valid, and the Frisbee golf people's, their need for property is valid too, and weighing that against a long wait, just because the town doesn't know if they want to use the buildings or how they want to use the buildings. It just seems like a little bit, not a conflict, but it's kind of doesn't seem justifiable to wait that long for activities that we've discussed and I think have come to the conclusion are compatible.
Yeah, just this one particular activity, not all of the activities.
Not the Frisbee golf.
Yeah, not the Frisbee golf, no, but
What-
for the
what
dog
other-
training, I don't know why we would
We're
wait.
ready to go.
And we would be willing to, if you guys wanna do a 1-year trial deal, just to see how it goes, you know, I mean, that's something we would be more than open to. see what we're doing out there. I think everybody would be approved, and I know you were saying about other people wanting to maybe get on the dogs and stuff. I mean, they could join our club, which would give the insurance, you know, because our club has insurance for our club members to go on properties and stuff. You know, so that's a deal there to where, you know, if you have people coming up and say, geez, why do these people get to come out and we don't? Well, you know, hey, they're fulfilling the wishes, the land is being used for dog training like their wishes were. And this club has insurance and stuff, and that's something, you know, if they wanna join the club, I mean, we're open to that. You know, and we're careful, I mean, people come in with, dogs that are out of control and, you know, they just want their dogs to run, they usually don't stick with the club too long, you know, so. I think we could be a big help fulfilling everything that she wanted on this land, and we're willing to, you know, if it's a 1-year lease deal, or not a lease, but a trial deal, I think that would be something I know we would be more than willing to do.
Can I make a motion?
Okay, let's try.
I will make a motion that Fort recommends the board and town staff consider dog training on the property prior to the development of the property.
On trial basis per club or for all clubs, or just to use it for all?
The
I think
Rick Club.
all, they just need to look into it.
To explore.
To explore.
Yeah, okay.
You know, because, yeah, there might be more than one club that wants to use it, is that a possibility? So, I think they just need to see if it's feasible.
In order to take it to the board, do we vote on it?
I think we vote if we want to,
Mhm.
can we get a second? We need a second.
I second that.
Okay. So Callie seconds.
Okay.
So
Audrey,
further discussion.
are you in favor of it?
I am in favor of it, yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. I'm in favor of it.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Unanimously in favor of looking at it as an option.
Okay. Great.
Thank you very much.
Is it Keith on the end?
That's Carl.
Carl?
Yes, sir.
Carl, I had given Keith some, information, the attachments that are part of that at the end. Do you happen to know if the trustees board, or if does anybody know where that stuff is at? Or should I get another copy of?
You could send it to Berthoud Board of Trustees. Is that the correct email address? If you send it to me, I can disseminate it. Or you can send it to the town clerk, Christian Samora.
Or you could do it to me. I mean, I
Or-
put,
or
I
to
put a
Keith.
copy of these in everyone's mailbox,
Okay,
so
okay.
I know you guys get a lot of mail.
And then Keith, we have like our insurance and also like, a copy of them.
I have those things, yeah.
Okay. And if you need more than that, we can definitely supply more than that.
Okay.
And then also, can I ask, when would be it appropriate for us to show up at your meeting to be able to be accessible to answer any questions that you might have?
So there's two ways you can do that. You can either come to the meeting where this comes before the board, and it would be an agenda item, so you would sign up for that, for speaking for the item, and you guys would get 3 minutes apiece. I believe also you can share time, so if one of you wants to speak for however many members there are there. The board meetings generally are not, it's not a two-way conversation. So you would basically open yourself up for comments, and then they would be able to email you, talk to town staff, that sort of thing. The other thing is, if you want to come to speak at any time, you're more than welcome, and it would just be, you'd be signing up to speak during public participation, which wouldn't be an agenda item, but you could at least get your faces out there, and the same speaking rules apply. So it's really up to you guys.
Okay, so would you recommend us to show up at that, because it's like next Tuesday, right? Is your next,
I don't know if that's on the agenda. When would this be on the agenda, do you know?
I don't know yet. It changes.
Yeah, so that's the issue with that.
so it would be better for us to wait until it is on the agenda prior to just showing up at a meeting and a public comment and trying to explain it then.
That would be my suggestion, is that you actually show up and speak on the agenda item when it comes
Okay.
up, because then it's, everything is kind of lumped together in the same agenda item.
Okay, And so I guess we'll just leave it at that, then I'll check in when it comes on the agenda. And I will try to get a bunch of items together so that you can share them amongst the group prior to the meeting, so that you kind of have a little bit more of an idea of what we do.
Okay.
And we will be happy, I will email a picture of dog jumping in the water. So that if it makes it onto the presentation, that'd be great.
Okay.
All
I can
right.
do that.
All right, another
Thank you.
meeting suggestion.
Thank you.
On to the Berthoud Arboretum update.
Yeah. Okay, where am I at? Going here. So the Arboretum actual construction documents have been underway. We're still expecting to finish those this summer. We're expecting the 60% designs to get over any time now. So let me find that. So what I am sharing with you, I think we met last October on this one as well. So we meet on a 2 to 4 week basis almost with them. It's supposed to be bi-weekly. Sometimes they tell us, hey, we don't really have much. So I'm taking bits out of all their presentations they've shared with us, and I'm kind of sharing them tonight so you can see how it's been evolving since then. So this is staff, and I'll kind of explain the options we've been picking. We have the fun part of having to make kind of quick decisions, trying to stay within a budget, and how are things going to connect? How's this going to look? We get to dive into all that during these meetings. So I remember this meeting, all we're talking about here was a bathroom location. So where's the bathroom going to possibly be on the site? Per location, and number 5, that's still about where the bathroom's going to sit. So when we're looking at the Arboretum here, if you remember, you have kind of the event lawn is what we're calling this area. And we'll go back to the old image. So this is what the event lawn used to look like. It's transformed a little way. We don't have a community garden per se over here. We kind of have an open space up here now. We still kind of have this irrigation pivot thing set up. And this is supposed to be like a tree nursery thing. And then the additional thing is we are still working on the purchase of this property over here. So working through all the steps of adding that 7 acres. So
What's the prospects there? Is that likely to happen?
yeah,
Okay.
it's looking good. Looking good. Kind of, I think the school district has talked about it with their board, with everybody. There's just a lot of little extra things we have to do to move.
2 government agencies.
Right. We've been told a tentative price. It's moving lot lines on, I guess one way, the property has a couple deeds or conservation easements. I'm gonna get them confused.
Yeah, I think Lavender has conservation easement.
Yeah, and this one, I believe the way it works is this property right here, even the school where they built their track, is tied to the easement that's tied to the north. So if you take like what's developed on the north and make like a big L, I think those are all one thing. And then part of that was sold to the school, I believe, by the town when all this was done. And so now we're buying this piece back.
Was it 7 acres? Is that what you said?
Yeah, 7.5. Yeah. So here's the event lawn. We're thinking restroom works right here. There's some utility lines. You can't see them anywhere on here, but sewer kind of comes down right here and stuff like that. So it's easy for us. Those kind of tie into that. We're thinking this would just be a seasonal restroom, so not like a 4-season open all the time. We have that one of those up here on the north side of the property. But of course, we sat in a meeting, dove through all the reasons why all of these other locations wouldn't work. But this one is the restroom location that's going to stick. We talked about lighting. The property lighting is very expensive and can add a lot very quick, especially if you're trying to run lights all the way through the property. So probably in the early phase, we have a lighted trail going along the west and south side of the property.
We're not sure about lighting all the way through the park property right away in phase one, since we already kind of have some lighting. We do have a trail that's through the middle already that's not lit. But, we still need some better cost and things sent over to us, so to see where the property's at. They are pricing out, letting us know how much that would cost to add the extra lighting going through the middle and so forth, so. Everything's still kind of on the table in a way, with the way things are going, and the prices.
Can I ask a question about lighting?
Yeah.
Have you guys looked into, I guess, any upgrades in solar lighting?
We've looked at those. I think one of the drawbacks with solar is you can't, I guess the one we were told is like you really can't control them on a timer like you would.
Mm.
I mean, you can, I think they're all individually doing their thing. I think you'd have to set each one maybe.
Mm.
All the lighting right now is tied into the rec center right now, so like if we were, because we were looking, especially over here, we know this parking lot probably needs some lighting. If this is not a confirmed parking lot, I don't want anyone to think we're building a road right here yet. We don't have any approval for that, but that's possible. So we would be like, okay, that would have to tie into the rec center lighting, so you can control it all from all the timers in the rec center type thing. So yeah, solar has been discussed, yeah. And maybe some solar bollards or something. Those are a little easier. They don't produce as much light. Might be an option still, doing some light through here. So I need to get a better idea of what the lighting's gonna turn out to be.
Because most of that lighting, I mean, it's on dusk to dawn anyway. I mean,
Yes. They're supposed to turn on at night. They're supposed to dim around 10 or 11 usually.
the solar lights do that, I mean, on their own anyway. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not, it doesn't sound like they're on a timer schedule other than dusk and dawn, really. Right, like the other lights.
Yeah. Like the other lights are just on, yeah, they're on a timer in the building, right? They're not on photo eyes or anything like that. It's nice during the July event to turn all the lights off on the property. That usually happens. So everything's on the table still. Let's see. Some other lighting. Here, so we do have this lighting right now. What would lighting look like if we did this parking lot, the event area, this main entrance to the area? This would be the new parking lot, which you can tell is expanded up to the skate park up here. This would be paved and all redone. And so if you just have general comments to share, those are good. I know during last time we did this, I think we were saying, hey, the pond's like kind of in the middle right now. We don't know where that's gonna shake out. And some poor comments were like, hey, that was like a really big part of the design in the beginning. We really like that. So that was shared and staff agreed. So we do think we're having a pond still right now, so.
What's the area just southeast of the event lawn that has stripes through it?
This is the tree nursery now.
Okay.
This is that children's garden is what we call that area. That's likely not gonna be a phase one thing that's added in as we keep trying to bring the cost down, and I'll show you kind of some breakdowns we've been seeing. So this was back in 2023, and this is what it looked like then. And if we move to 2024, it's developed into this now. So I'm gonna go back again. You can see the event lawn, kind of the tree nursery. Those are some of the main ones, adding in this other area. So in that time, we've added in the additional acreage. Everything's kind of shifted over a little bit to make some more room. We added that children's garden. The community garden went away. We do have we do have the play area still throughout the property. Other things I dove into during this process, you figure out where's all the storm water and stuff gonna go. And on the site, you have one down here in this corner, kind of retention area. You have a retention area over on this side. This ponds kind of act as some water holdage as well. I think those are the 3 sites.
Would there be any kind of intent to aerate those too, just to mitigate on bugs?
You say aerate, what do you mean?
Pump water or oxygen into them?
Oh, so this will probably be the only one actually like really holding water.
Okay.
These other ones we would expect to hold water for a couple days, and then if it ever did. The site really doesn't hold a lot of water right now when things happen. But yeah, this pond would be aerated for sure.
I just don't like mosquitoes.
We agree? So we would, yeah, it'd get the aeration. We would tell BDCI to check for larvae in there and throw their larvicide in there as well. There still is kind of a little canal there too, to show like an old kind of farm irrigation ditch, but this pond would not be used for irrigation anymore. We're working on improvements that would come straight out of the ditch and kind of be pressurized. That would go to the North Park area, this area, possibly the school, possibly the farmer down here, so everyone's fed. Automatic gates and stuff. We're kind of working with an old system up there. They're redoing some of the stuff up on the north side. No, in level and reservoir. We have this outlet structure. You know, the detritor goes, he goes and opens the outlet up, water starts flowing down. It might be from early 1900s is what they think it is. And that got pulled out. We talked about that possibly being put in the Arboretum somewhere as like a cool relic, because it's, you know, I haven't seen it personally. I hear it's pretty impressive looking. And all that's kind of getting automated now, which is, well, needed. Looking at some cost comparison. So this is when we did this last year and we were doing the conceptual design. We were like, hey, let's stay around 6 million. And that's where the conceptual job plan came out. Then as we start getting into the design this year, the new total is 11 million something. We're like, hey, that's not going to work out. So now we have some reduced plans. And I think we go through a phasing of this. So
Is the purchase of the other property part of that 11 million or no?
no, that's actually not going to be too bad of a price for us, cost-wise. But a lot of those appraisals and stuff are still going forward right now.
But that $11 million plan is like including the proposed 7.5 acre area, like.
Yeah.
What was the old plan, the 6 million without the 7 acres?
Probably, yeah, right.
And then now this is including the 7 acres, the 11
Like the
million.
big change in is that because of that additional parking lot, the pavements and walks?
And that parking lot, the other new one would probably be soft gravel. So I think like adding the kids garden in was a big cost. I mean, that's probably almost $1 million when you think of all the structures and stuff that we're gonna go in there. I don't know if they have it listed in here anywhere, but adding that extra acreage for sure brought the cost up. How we were gonna use the pond, have an irrigation pump in the pond house type stuff. We haven't seen a lot of irrigation. We're waiting on the irrigation piece of it. That's something we're very interested in and how that's gonna come back to us. So let's see, we're breaking it down now, and you know, as a total, they think this site could be 7.9 million. So they broke it down into 2 phases for us at one time. So okay, first phase could be about just under 7 million. But what does that mean? Okay, the center irrigation pivot thing, kind of a focal piece of the property that wouldn't be included. less benches, less picnic area, less structures, less concrete. What else do we have? The lighting was taken out, children's garden gone, and playouts. And some of those were your guys' comments as well. Like I remember one time I was like, hey, you guys don't have to do so much. You know, less is okay. Keep it reasonable. So and then phase 2 would include the rest of this children's garden and additional type of amenity things. So what we told them after this was, we'll keep these features in here. If you're saying the price tag is $250,000 for the center pivot irrigation thing, you know, all these play structures, we want to keep that in there. Is there anything else I had? Thought I was gonna remember everything I said was gonna be left in there. But we definitely want to keep that. That's a focal part of it. But we didn't say add the children's garden. We know that's probably a second phase type thing. So we are trying to keep it around 6 to 7 million still, in general. So talking down here in this southwest corner, we're discussing a monument sign around that corner. Again, no name or anything's been officialized yet for this, but we have been calling it the garden spot. So like here's one example, here's a second example. I think this is gonna have kind of like formed concrete with kind of the rusted look like we have in some of the areas around town. And then a third example, have that block with kind of blue letters. So we liked option number 1 the best. The brick kind of matches what's at the rec center already. It looked the best at night based off their graphics. So that's kind of the one we're leaning towards. And then I think, do we have another? Maybe that's the last picture we have. Or there's another one that shows more of a layout later on, but this is the one we're still kind of moving forward with. We look into, so we get options like this because they bring us, okay, $1 sign, $2 signs and stuff like that. And so we're sticking around the $1 or $2 signs for most of the options. We do think the event area needs some nice fencing. So I think we're trying to work through some kind of black fencing around there. Especially if it's a possibility events can be held in there. It's already nice and fenced in. You know, we don't have to put up that orange fencing around everything or temporary fencing. It'll look nice. And then for the rest of the fencing in the area, we're fine with some type of split rail wood fencing. But this area would probably get something a little more upscale. And yeah, there's some really nice options. We get to see a lot of cool stuff, and it's just like, why are you even showing us this? We can't afford it.
Yeah, you can have this one, but this one is a little bit more. Yeah.
This is just showing you, so sometimes during the meeting, this is the start of a meeting, okay? We're gonna talk about these 4 things or something. So this is hard to look at, especially if you're gonna try to figure out what all the seed types are. This hasn't been described to us very well. This was very quickly one of the most recent meetings I remember. I'm waiting for more images that come back, like they've shown before, of okay, this area is gonna have this type of vegetation and stuff when they show this, but if you remember, we're kind of having a different seed mix that's gonna go from like prairie and meadows up to, you know, high elevation mixes. And some of those high elevation mixes or alpine mixes you can see around here. These are kind of some tall points. I think we have right here, possibly a sledding hill could be made out of here because it's one of the tall points. They're showing some ornamental type stuff in the darker areas, kind of along some of the trails. It's very hard. My eyes almost can't pick the difference between like alpine mix and arid mix on here. that well, but I believe what I'm looking at, this is like the arid dry land mix. There's the wetland mixes over here and in the retention areas mixed throughout. Then there's just kind of some wildflower mixes. I think these are some wildflower mixes right here and right here around the corners. Looks like there's some through here too. Trees wise, a lot of trees. And we're asking to try to include some with some larger diameters and all that fun stuff, so.
And all the plantings would be part of phase one.
So that's how I understand it right now. I could see them. They have a tendency to overplant beds. And you'll have an area, and I mean, we'll likely tell them at the end of this whole thing, hey, take 40% of the plantings away. And you guys are gonna be like, these beds are full still. And that's, even at Town Park, we told them to take 30 or 40% out. And there's beds that had like 30 grasses in them. And yeah, it's still like, you're still gonna fit, and they try to fit that much in there, like, you know, it's not gonna work out, so. They have a
30-40% is a
tendency.
huge cost savings though, too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's huge, yeah.
So I can see that already happening, or, I mean,
So I was getting curious about it. You know, there's a way where you can save some money real easy.
yeah, because they're gonna get bigger, and,
Yeah.
you know, we've learned a lot of lessons through the years. The plants at the rec center, the stuff in the parking areas there, I mean, those like to grow out over the parking area in some ways, so we don't recommend those anymore. We know only a couple of those will fill that area in within like a year. So we've got some, you know, better people review our landscape designs in-house now as well. I mean, we were relying a lot on outside resources for that. Now we have new planners that are landscape architects. We have staff on our open space that are, you know, very knowledgeable with plantings and how to maintain them all. So a lot's changed in the last 6 years, I think.
And I'm guessing they're considering this, and apologies for forgetting some detail from the past, but as far as sightlines towards the mountains, towards the park and the Indian Peaks, is there any thought to the plantings as far as that goes, maintaining some view shed, maintaining some ability, just such a wonderful
Mhm.
view, you know, especially from that property. So
Yes.
yeah,
I would think so. I mean, I know I can't remember what plantings they said we're gonna go here, because we're supposed to maintain a view shed through here.
yeah, that's why I thought we had talked about this to some extent before, but
And they brought that up in the last meeting that
Yeah.
these were gonna be lower growing.
okay,
Um,
that's great, especially around the pond. That would be kind of neat to preserve some view.
but haven't had a tree list or anything to look at for sure yet.
They're also looking at putting 3-story apartment buildings across the street, so. you
Is that
guys
still
might not be an issue.
is that still alive? It is. Oh, it's a shame.
We asked them, we looked into, because it's been brought up here about the legacy property down here and like how those would tie in together, but this legacy property on the corner is like a commercial lot right here. So it doesn't like lead to directly into development. There's kind of like a commercial lot, probably a retention area that'll be right there. But that has been looked at, like, and we've looked at kind of their, I guess, plats and.
Yeah, and they're supposed to put a trail connection at that southwest corner.
Yep.
So
Come right through here. Let's see. These are just fun, you know, questions to pick our brains and make us overthink things. But like for this area right here, do we throw a nice sandblasted concrete decoration? A lot of these things can be done after the fact, so we're not advising them to do anything unique at the moment, just because it's cost savings for us right now. But we can always sandblast things later on if we wanted to. All these treatments can be done later on. That's my understanding. So we've asked to maybe do some different kind of scoring of the concrete So maybe not just standard rectangles, maybe do some different kind of shapes or something with the concrete cutting to maybe give a focus to that area if it's a special unique area. I think we also talked about, oh yeah, then pavers, we would love all that. It looks awesome. Even if it's probably maybe a pain for snow removal. Looks awesome, but we know that the price of those are way more than just doing concrete, so. It'll likely just be a concrete entrance right here. This would, if you go this way, you're in the event lawn. If you go this way, you're going kind of the open space in front of the pivot. So the question was, okay, we have a Crusher Finds trail heading off this way. Well, we should just connect the concrete over here, and then that's how that Crusher Finds trail will start off the concrete.
Sometimes stamped concrete, if it's done well, can provide some relief and it would stand out against the concrete and the Crusher Fine paths without being expensive.
Right. Yeah, I think we do have stamped concrete right here. I think the recommendation was still to do some kind of different scoring of the concrete here or different lines to motivate, but I mean, I could see some stamped concrete getting added in throughout. Is it definitely a cheaper option?
Yeah, that looks nice because it has a botanical theme, which is appropriate for an arboretum.
Let's see. So this is kind of a better picture of that entry sign. So you're coming off Mountain Avenue, you'd walk up here and you could go different directions. This is placed over here. There, I forget the widening. What I think the Parkway will possibly widen right there a little bit one day. So that's putting all that into consideration now.
Can I make a comment on this sign? The Berthoud logo that you showed in the previous is so nice. It looks so much nicer to me than that font in white letters you had at the entrance.
So this font?
No,
Or
that this logo is much nicer than what you showed at the entrance. It's so much nicer than, for me, the white letters and the font are far less interesting than the Berthoud logo. Just an observation, in my opinion.
Could we add the Berthoud logo as well? Like, could it be something that we put on like one of the sides or on the bottom?
Berthoud logo is kind of a brand that seems like we'd want it to be front and center, and it's nicely done. And the garden spot looks like it's just so generic to me.
yeah, we did. They are supposed to be doing it. They don't have the exact font. I can't remember what that font was going to be. This font, it's going to be a little different font than this. I think these are like a silver color. Is what that's supposed to look like. But yeah, I can mention that comment. We are starting a rebranding with the town, and so I don't know what all will come out of that. But that is.
What do you mean rebranding?
Just getting feedback from the whole town, basically. I think in some way, or
Yeah, so rebranding it's a huge process. It's not just like the signage and things like that. It's also certain architectural and aesthetic themes in different sections of town. It includes signage, but it's also sort of like when you go downtown, you know you're downtown because there's a shared aesthetic. When you go to the industrial area, it's a shared aesthetic. The parks will have a shared aesthetic so that everyone knows that, hey, this not only is this a park, this is a Berthoud Park because it shares signage, building aesthetics, design features of the other parks around town, that sort of thing.
That's what I was wondering, when you showed the 3 examples, I immediately went to the second one because it had that rusted look like the other signs from the other parks. And so that my brain automatically went to that one when I was looking at the 3, but or something that's more in line with those other signs that we've been putting at the other parks.
I think that second one was nice, but it kind of just looked washed out. Like I almost feel like you couldn't see it. So if it was on like you know how Grace Place has it on like the rocks, how it has that brown on the rocks. I feel like if we did it like, or actually no, yeah, it's like that I think. But I feel like if it was on rocks instead of with grass, that one might look a little bit better.
So I'm sure when all this is going, this sign's gonna have some be brought up again during that process. That's my guess. And I know you brought up the metal. Some people like the metal, some people don't. Some people don't like the rusted look of things. So.
There were actually reports of the signage rusting.
Mm-hmm.
The rusted signage rusting.
Yeah. Hope you guys know your sign is rusting.
Not that natural material, like, on sandstone, sometimes they'll make signs. I'm thinking how they do cemetery headstones. But it could be a more natural material, might be nicer since it's an arboretum, it's about
Okay.
nature.
That's a good comment. Okay. And this is showing us more expensive options that we're not gonna fortunately be able to work with. The band shell, it's likely gonna like this option. We talked about if we need storage and things back there. I believe it's coming. It's not gonna have storage, but it will have these types of wall as the back. But this is kind of the band shell, like the design that the consultants have come up with, but they're working with companies now to actually get us like real life examples, not drawings of what it could look like. But we'll just have a little back wall as a backstop, maybe protect some wind or anything. And the last one is another rest. We started on restrooms, we're ending on restrooms. Okay. What could that little restroom we looked at the beginning end up looking like? And we do have a theme on the property. We have a couple structures with this type of, this color, this pattern, these roofs. So the restroom could possibly follow that same example, and as a cheaper option, maybe we don't need a little front awning on the front of the restroom. We can take that away and still probably function just fine. So.
What's the difference, I guess, is a four-season bathroom significantly more expensive? Or why not put in?
It's probably, so how much, like one of these restrooms is probably $200,000 or $300,000, which is incredible. I'm thinking of two restrooms. Probably adding insulation, taking like the heaters and stuff. I think that's a 20 or 30,000 maybe addition. I don't think it's a super expensive add-on.
Plus maintenance.
Yeah,
Right.
we do pay monthly to have them cleaned out. It's nice for the Parks Department to put them to bed for a little while.
That's what I mean. That's what I was getting at, yeah.
That's a nice feature. We put a handful of four-season restrooms in, yeah. And, yeah, it's a lot to keep up on, I guess, through the year. So we have a handful, and there's another one on site, so that's why. I feel like if this was a whole new location, you'd have a four-season restroom probably there.
I think you can also factor in like the decrease generally as the seasons change. I mean, I run around the reservoir all the time, and it definitely decreases a lot when it's cold.
So that's the end of this. So if there's any general comments, you're looking through that you'd want to share, you can let me know, and I'll pass them along as we keep talking through this. But that's how it's evolved since we started this process. What, in 2023 almost did we start the conceptual design? Get into 2024, or was that all in 1 year?
I guess my biggest thing is just making
Yeah.
sure that the plantings stay in phase one. Like, I wouldn't want any of just because the whole point is to be an arboretum and that takes a long time for all that stuff to grow, that putting any of that in phase two doesn't make sense to me.
I'm sure there will be replantings in phase two.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right?
well, yeah.
I mean, plantings, I feel like, yeah, most of it will be phase one, but I could imagine there'll be a lot of stuff that doesn't take,
Warranty.
and you'd have to do I mean, it's probably a multi-year process to get everything established.
It will be fun, yeah, because, yeah. Then that's, part of that's like looking at town, we're gonna do that whole process here in a, 5 months. We're gonna do the 1-year warranty of all the town plantings, and sometimes we get to that, and we're like, the bed looks great, we don't need to throw 2 more things, but those are fun things that happen. The trees at the rec center, I think a majority of those have been replaced. They tried some new varieties up there, they did not fare very well. So I think along the entrance, along that gravel, picnic table area, I think a lot of those got, I think they got replaced once and then they've been replaced again. So, I mean, this is going to give our forestry staff a ton to do.
So the sooner the better, because it'll take a long time to get it all
We love it.
established and going.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I mean, you're going to be a great resource, great value for the town. So very exciting to see it progress.
Yeah, I think maybe my first meeting I asked what was grow, like, cause it, to me, a non-agriculture person, it just looked like a field of weeds. And you had to educate me on that you were actually growing something out there.
Been trying. Yeah, I almost feel we wanted to turn the field over from the alfalfa and the weeds. And then, yeah, when you don't have water flowing to the property, it's been tough. But right now there's a dryland grass that's been planted there twice now in there. So maybe it'll be a little thicker, but I mean, depending on, we're thinking about starting the process of kind of sterilizing that soil, getting ready for this. So you might see that field totally tilled up, this year a couple times as we work through tilling it up, getting rid of all the weeds, tilling it up again. Yeah. That way, when we plant a bunch of native seed, we're not competing with a ton of weeds, which is happening.
On
So that
that,
might be the change.
on that note, is there any way to work with developments or other projects around town for possibly getting dirt moved in? Because I noticed the cost of moving the dirt was obviously going to be significant. So, like, if you were digging holes in other places and shipping the dirt out, is there any way to ship it here so there's less of a need to purchase dirt?
We'll try to coordinate something like that. We've one of our guys, because we now have in-house our inspector, the development inspector. So he's someone that can give us a kind of heads up, like, hey, you guys are even getting rid of dirt or moving dirt, like that. We've tried that with town projects before, which was part of that happened for the Wagner Farm Park. We took a bunch of dirt from the reservoir and brought that over to the project, and it was terrible dirt. Terrible dirt for growing things on.
Yeah. Plus,
but
more weed potential, more weed seed.
Yes, yeah. So you get, and that's anytime you disturb the soil, it's gonna be tough like that. But so we'll look at that. Yeah, it's not fun paying for dirt or having it hold off somewhere.
Any other comments on this?
I appreciate the phasing proposal that you have. I think that is nice, just to kind of break it down a little bit, so it's not as much of a sticker shock.
Mm-hmm.
It still feels like a lot getting, getting done in phase one, which is,
Yeah, I think if you had trails and trees planted
Dude,
and
we're
green
racist.
areas,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't think people would notice the things that you're,
Yeah,
Trails and vegetation, everybody's so happy.
Right.
and if I had to guess, like, I'm just guessing, but I feel like we're gonna try to get this down to 5 million or something like that.
Now, is the thought before we actually do this plan that you have the land from Thompson School District?
Before we are all finished, and yeah. I'm hoping it wraps up in the next couple months.
Any other comments? Move on to staff updates then?
Yeah, so let's see, we have the trail project going on North Bertha Parkway. So you can see that, or that should be open in the next couple months probably.
And I would suggest, maybe there has been communication, but something going out about that, because multiple people have asked me if the park is being built.
Oh, interesting.
People
So
are gonna be real bummed when they learn it's just a trail. It's
I know
not-
the newspaper
Well,
took all our
fields are-
details like a week ago or two, so hopefully they run that article soon. I'll check on that though.
Cause it's right, there's a big sign that
Right
says
next to the sign.
future
Yeah, I
community park.
myself was like,
You're
wait, oh.
tearing up all the dirt, so it certainly looks like the park is being built.
That is good to know. Let's see, for the pool, the latest update on that. So that went to the board. At some point, it's gonna get brought back to you all, and what's kind of moving forward now is I think there was an agreement for the feasibility of having that separate kiddie pool, adding the 8 lap lanes, or having 8 lap lanes, a possible indoor-outdoor retractable roof type thing. I think all those are being looked at now, and we're supposed to get back from the design team possibly 3 concepts that are kind of like good, better, best concept type things, and we'll get to look at those at some point. I would assume, well, you guys had that meeting like a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was two meetings ago.
So, I mean, that seems like a May thing to me, but maybe they'll have it done by April, and that'll be our April topic. That's where the pool's at right now.
I streamed the meeting, I thought it was really good. Spent a lot of time on it, and it was interesting that the focus came down to 8 lanes and a separate kiddie pool, which was quite similar to our discussion.
Yeah, thank you for sending out the notes since I wasn't there.
I cranked them out
Sorry.
upon request of Carl, yeah. I was like, well, here we go. Yeah, I was happy to do it.
Do you guys know if they decided on how long the pool would be? Like, did they say?
I think it was 25 yards. Was what we came
25
down to.
meters?
Yeah.
Yeah, 25 yards.
Seems right. That's all I have.
Committee updates. Audrey?
We had a meeting this morning and we talked about I can't remember what they called it, but where we're meeting with other youth advisory commissions, and we're gonna have another meeting next week just as like a work day, so we can just crank all that stuff out. Me and Amanda are gonna go talk to Rise about catering and that stuff, so that's cool. Miss Ginger from the House of Neighborly Services came and spoke with us this morning, and she was telling us that they want to build a teen building. I can't remember what building they said they want to buy, but they were gonna put out a survey to the teens and see if we wanted that, and I don't know, I want it. It sounds really cool. So yeah, she was just telling us all about that, and that was a really good meeting. So yeah, that's all we got.
Nothing from me.
I have nothing. Nothing. I have nothing.
Nothing.
Huh?
Okay. We got a motion to adjourn.